Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Melissa and my channel is about psychiatric drug withdrawal reactions and recovery. So I went through a very long and very painful journey. I was first withdrawing from SSRIs, and then I did a disastrous reinstatement, which involved more SSRIs, antipsychotics, and then benzos, which I went paradoxical to after about a month. And I developed akathisia, movement disorder. My symptoms originally from the SSRI withdrawal got about 1,000 times worse, the mental being the most extreme for me. You can watch my videos where I detail my mental symptoms. And now I've gotten to a place where I feel much, much, much better, and I try to help others going through this extremely painful and difficult process. So I do one-on-one coaching. I do 15-minute free consultations, 30-minute calls, and 60-minute calls at lower rates than other places online. I also have put together some 4-session packages for people who want to meet more regularly at a further discounted rate, and I will include the link to my online booking calendar in the description of this video, as well as the link to my website. If you're interested in reading more about my story, you can book sessions through there as well. And if you have a single question to ask me, feel free to email me, and I'll include the email address in the description. So this video today is going to be about, I didn't know what to call it, so I decided to call it fixing yet not fixing the problem. And I think this will be of interest to a lot of people in this journey, because throughout my coaching and the hundreds of people I'd talked to over the years through YouTube and my other social media platforms and just places I've shared my story, this comes up a lot. And what I mean by it in a nutshell is, when we first go into withdrawal, whether we know what it is or not, I didn't in my first withdrawal, we go into fix it mode, and it's natural because something's wrong and you naturally want to fix it. And especially when the symptoms come on really, really intensely and strongly, and if you are completely unaware of withdrawal or what can happen when you come off these drugs, it can be a very jarring experience, to say the least. That's what happened to me. And so whether you know it's withdrawal or not, and wherever you're finding your information that you're searching for, it can become a problem. So, okay, this could be a bit of a long video, but I think it's really important. So it's a very fine line between fixing the problem and leaving it alone. So when we come off these drugs, our body goes into fight or flight and it gets stuck there. And this can manifest in all kinds of different symptoms for different people. Some people have more physical symptoms. Some people have more psychiatric and mental symptoms. Some people have both. I had both. But the mental was much worse for me. And so we go into this fight or flight mode, which is just like, like it's just this frantic. I mean, frantic is almost an understatement. It's just sheer panic, terror, white knuckling mode. And again, we want to fix it, right? And so there are a lot of good programs out there for brain retraining and for nervous system work and limbic stuff, and even symptom specific things like tinnitus. There are tinnitus retraining therapies. There's all kinds of stuff for vagus nerve, polyvagal things, all of these things that you find in your research. And I'm not saying that they all have their place and they all have value. And I get this question a lot from people: should I invest in DNRS, so dynamic neural retraining system, the program? So that's a brain retraining. Should I do NLP, so neuro linguistic program? Should I do Gupta method? And there's all of these different programs. And what I tell people is, when you're in acute, and even people ask me, what do you mean by acute? So my personal definition is when you're in symptoms 24/7 and you have no space between yourself and your symptoms. That is acute. Once you move into more what I call a subacute, you might have then windows and waves, windows being where your symptoms are either greatly improved, greatly lessened, or even just half lessened, or they're completely gone. Some people go into that pattern. Some people go into where it's just like, I don't feel debilitated 24/7. Maybe they do for the first half of the day, and then they have a partial lessening of symptoms in the evening. That could be classified as a window and wave pattern too, I guess. Or just anything where you feel like you have a little bit of space between yourself and your symptoms and you're becoming a little bit more functional. Once you get into that mode, I think that these programs can be really helpful. So when you're in acute, which people always ask me for timelines. A lot of the times I would say the first year. Sometimes it's only 6 months. Sometimes it's only 3 months. I think 3 to 6 months is sort of the average, but it can go up to 1 year, or it can even go past 1 year. It just depends. I don't say that to scare people, but the average is, I would say right at the average mark is around 6 months. And that's kind of when you're feeling the most intense symptoms and they just seem relentless. You might have continuing, even if you feel like you're doing better after a certain amount of time, you might have just one or two symptoms that just feel relentless. Maybe they're not as intense as they were in the beginning, but they just carry on and on. I find that that's really common. So someone will be like, I had 50 symptoms and now it's been whatever, a year or 2 years or whatever the timeline is. And now I'm just stuck with this one symptom that I can't quite get rid of. It could be headaches. It could be tinnitus. It could be internal vibrations, whatever it is. It could be skin burning. They're just like, I just want this one last symptom to go away. And so I think that's another kind of where I would consider it subacute or protracted or whatever, is when you just have those few lingering symptoms that just won't quite let go, or you still have the windows and waves pattern that just won't quite let go. I think those are the times when you can get into more of the programs and sort of the other helpful or things that people offer on the internet. Again, whether it's in the drug community or in the general community. So when you're in acute, you're in survival mode. So people ask me, well, what do I do to get through acute? Well, my advice is, even if you're in a severe symptom state, you're in survival mode. So whatever you need to do to get through, and what that looks like, I think for the bulk of people, one of the main things that you need is support. So the ideal is 3 different types of support, although it's not required in order to get through this. The 3 types of support are real life support, so people around you in your physical world that validate you, believe you, maybe don't understand you, but they're there for you no matter what. The second type of support is online, and this is in the form of like healing buddies or people who are going through it at the same time as you, maybe in the same stage as you, maybe with the same drugs as you, maybe at the same age, whatever you're looking for, and they're kind of going through the journey at the same time with you, as long as it's positive. That's what you want. You don't want to be in suffering competitions or, dragging each other down, scaring people or scaring each other. It needs to be positive. And then the third type of support is from a mentor, a coach, or someone who has come out the other side. So that could just be someone you find that has a success story on the forums. It could be a coach. It could be just a mentor like I had. Those are the 3 kind of ideal types of support, but you don't need all of them. And so even if you're someone who has very severe symptoms, and I've seen this, I saw it in my support group, I've seen it with coaching clients, even if the support looks like, okay, they're not really able to interact. Maybe they're having a hard time looking at the screen. If it's a video chat, maybe they're just having a hard time even thinking straight because they're in such panic mode. Even for them to just sit there while a coach or mentor or somebody on the other side just sits with them, allows them to, feel whatever they're feeling, and just that kind of calm energy on the other end of the line really can be helpful for people. I've seen that with people with severe akathisia who maybe can't interact, because people will say, well, when you talk about support, like I can't even talk to people. I can't function. All I want to do is scream and pace around. And I'm like, even if you can have someone who understands and validates you and listens to you and is a calming energy on the other side, that is enough for support if you're in that phase. So that's really important in the acute. Also, distraction. Now, again, people say, I can't distract. I couldn't distract either. My mental was so bad. It didn't matter what I did, but I would attempt to distract. So I would try to do things. And this usually, again, looked in the form of talking to people. So I was on my video chats with my 10 women support group. It could be one woman at a time. It could be all 10. And just trying to talk through it or trying to just engage in something that was a little bit outside of myself. We wouldn't always just be talking about symptoms and about benzos and whatever. Sometimes we were just talking about life. And just even if I could just sit there and listen, it was a way to kind of try to pull my mind out of myself. So that's kind of what you do in acute. And also listening to your body. And I know people feel really disconnected when they're in severe symptoms. They're like, I don't know what's my gut. I don't know what's fear. I don't know what is what here. So listen to it as much as possible. Even if you get a few moments of calm, just try to listen to what your body needs. If you're in, some people have extreme fatigue when they're in acute. Rest as much as you can. If you are someone with akathisia or just a heightened, anxiety or however you describe it, or really uncomfortable body sensations, try to walk, even if it's just around your house, even if it's just around your bedroom. Like, you're just in survival mode. You're trying to get through. So that's the best kind of tips I can say for the acute stage. Now, another thing that, okay, so tying into the title of this, fixing yet not mixing. So I'm getting into now subacute protracted people. This is where you can sort of do other things that might carry you through to the end. And there's all kinds of things. So there's different diets. So if you're familiar with Jordan and Michaela Peterson, they talk about carnivore. Some people talk about raw vegan. All of, like, there's the diet part, there's again the brain retraining programs, there's fasting, different types of fasting. Some people swear by, dry fasting, water fasting, different lengths of time, intermittent fasting, all of the alternative therapies like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, craniosacral, all of the things. Like, there's a million different types of alternative therapies for the nervous system. Same with supplements. I don't recommend doing any of those types of things until you're out of acute. And again, so it's really hard because it's a fine line. And I want to differentiate this here, because when I talk about fixing yet not fixing, so when we get into a place of fear, when we're trying to fix things from a fear, and this is why I don't recommend doing it in acute, because you're always in a fear state. But even when you're sort of in subacute and you get windows and waves and you still feel uneasy, but it's just less intense, you don't want to be going into any of these programs or trying to do any of these things from a fear state. And I see this often, and I did this myself, where I'm just like, I have to fix it. I'm so uncomfortable. I want my life back. When you're doing it from that tightened grasp, it often backfires, because again, the reason why we're in this state is because we threw off our fight or flight system in a horrible, horrible way. So kind of white knuckling and trying to fix it and researching and trying to figure it out can actually dig the trench further, because you're feeding your subconscious and your limbic system and everything with, there's something wrong, I must fix it. And when you're doing it that way, it can create much more stress, and then it backfires. People are trying supplements that they're reacting to, and they're like, but I've got to figure it out. Or they're doing some type of extreme diet and they know it's making them worse, but they're like, I have to push through and fix it. When you do it from that sort of really heightened state, it often backfires, especially when you're in this situation with drug withdrawal and reactions. So, a lot of times I've said this, and in the forums, time is the biggest factor. And I still believe that, because over time, I do believe your body can find homeostasis on its own. But I do think also there are things you can do to sort of nudge it along when you're further down the road of recovery. So there's this motto or sort of thing where it says, don't just lay and pray. So you don't want to go into this mode where you're just like, I'm just going to do nothing, absolutely nothing, because time is all it's going to take to heal me. And you just sort of sit back and kind of stew about it and just like, well, I'm just going to twiddle my thumbs. You don't want to do that, but you also don't want to go into fix it mode where it's coming from a place of fear. So if you know anything about manifestation or the law of attraction, that's something that I used to practice very heavily several years back. And one of the things that they teach you it's one of the sort of basics of manifestation is you have to do it from a place of peace. You can't chase it. You can't be trying to manipulate things to make it happen. You have to sort of put it out there, what you want, from a place of calm, and then you just sort of go about engaging in your life and you sort of wait for it to come back to you. And maybe that's not the best analogy, but the reason I'm saying that is because same with this thing, if you can get into a place of, okay, I'm in a window or I'm in a space where I don't feel these symptoms so intensely, I'm going to look into maybe some brain retraining programs. I'm just going to notice it, or I'm just going to be curious about it. I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because, I'm doing windows and waves. Time really is making things better, but maybe there's something that I could be doing to sort of help things along. And if you're in a place of calm, that's where you want to do it from. You don't want to do it from any other headspace, because again, the problem is fight or flight at the end of the day. And going into that fix it mode just again feeds that fear cycle. You have to fix it. There's something wrong. I need to do something. Do. And it just creates a more of a stress response and more of a negative, fearful feedback loop. So that's my best advice with that, is in the first year, honestly, just do what you can to cope, and obviously do self-care as much as you can, but don't go into fix-it mode, because I rarely, if ever, see it where someone will say to me, you know what, I did have an iron deficiency and I took iron and all of my withdrawal symptoms went away. I went through this. I did OAT testing. I did SpectraCell testing. I did live blood analysis, because I was like, there's got to be something that I'm missing here. And all of it, like whatever was recommended, the supplements, I would become obsessed with it and try it. And I just either wasn't getting better or I was having reactions. And then I would just get full of despair again, because I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you have to really let yourself go through, I guess, as horrible as that sounds, I'm not saying you should just accept what happened to you. I'm just saying that you have to get to a place where you understand that in acute, you have to just survive, and you have to find things, even if it's just a tiny little thing, that contributes to sort of calmness and relaxation. Again, people even in severe symptoms will say to me, I was talking to someone and just for 5 minutes, I felt a little bit of calmness or a little bit of peace, or I was able to concentrate on what they were saying, whatever it might be. You have to just do those things in acute to get you through. And again, once you move further along, you can look into other things, but make sure it's from a place of peace, calm, curiosity, and just noticing, you know what, hey, I still have lingering tinnitus. Maybe I'll look into a coach, or there are programs online that have reversed people's tinnitus. So you could look into those type of things once you get out of it. So it's a fine line between not fixing the problem, because if you're doing that and it's causing more stress, it's digging you further into that hole, but also like being curious about, maybe there are some things in my life that I could change that might help some of these symptoms. So there is one theory of all of this where it's like there's mitochondrial dysfunction. I don't know if that's true or not, and maybe that part isn't so much true as far as the domino theory. So I've heard this before where the benzos or the antidepressants, antipsychotics were just the last straw. And that's why some people develop issues with these drugs and some people don't. Some people have had this domino effect, and there's different pillars to it. It could be living a toxic lifestyle. It could be that you had some type of chronic infection that went dormant, but now this brought it back out. It could be, I don't know, just different unhealthy lifestyle habits, poor nutrition, vitamin and mineral deficiencies. It could be sort of these things stacking up, but then the benzo or the drug was the catalyst to take it over the top. And now you have all of this nervous system dysfunction. There's all these different theories. And to me, that makes sense, because just straight withdrawal never made much sense to me. And I always kind of had this hunch that there's a toxicity factor, but I didn't really know how to describe that, I guess, because it's not just like something that acutely happened quickly. I think the domino theory is a good way to sort of describe it, where you had sort of all these things building up. It could even just be chronic stress. It could have been all these different things, or trauma, and then it was just the drug just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. And there's different programs that look into all of these things. And again, you could start correcting maybe some of these things that you believe maybe led up to this sort of catalyst or catastrophic event. And maybe you want to start working on. A lot of people will say too, well, I had pre-existing trauma, or I now have PTSD from this. Do I not need help, like trauma help for that? And my answer is, I don't think that it would hurt, and maybe it will really. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do EMDR or different trauma therapies. I'm just saying, if, again, you get some space from your symptoms and you sort of are listening to your body, or you're doing a meditation, or you're praying, or whatever you choose to do, and you're like, you know what, I just have this hunch that my pre-existing trauma or the trauma from all of this is something I might need to work through. Again, when you have space from the acute symptoms, look into those things from a place of curiosity. That's another thing that meditation teaches, is you're just learning to breathe and to just sit with whatever's going on. If whether it's monkey brain, your brain's going all over the place, or you're having a lot of health anxiety, or you're going through withdrawal, you're trying to just sit with it and just kind of look at it from a place of curiosity and just noticing. Again, this is not when you're in acute. This is when you're in more of a subacute. And that's kind of the place that I want you to go into these other sort of modalities, from a place of noticing and curiosity. And I do believe too that once you're in that place, especially if you start meditating when you're in sort of a subacute or protracted, I really think you can tap into your intuition that way and sort of understand or maybe learn about what your body might need. There's another thing I wanted to mention. So another thing that comes up with clients is they'll say, what medication is safe to take? Or is it okay if I get a birth control patch? Or is it okay if I get a steroid shot? And I'm not saying it is or isn't. I think the best thing to do is to avoid medications as much as possible, especially in acute, again, unless you're in a life or death situation, obviously. But some people will say, well, my doctor told me that if I use a steroid nasal spray, it's localized. Or if I get a steroid shot, this is what doctors have said to me, it's localized. Or if I use a pain patch, it's localized. First of all, I don't believe that, because if you think about something like a birth control patch or even a fentanyl patch, I mean, that's getting into your whole system. That's how it works. So, and I mean, also, when you go to sort of traditional doctors about tinnitus, they will say, well, it's an ear problem, and it's just localized to your ear. It has nothing to do with the rest of your body. It has nothing to do with anything else. You just have damaged ear cells. And the more that I sort of delve into this whole world of withdrawal and my own chronic conditions that have nothing to do with withdrawal, like diabetes, almost nothing is compartmentalized, whether it's a medication, whether it's a chronic condition. It's hardly ever just one thing. And so I have been diving into some of these tinnitus programs and looking into what they have to say, watching the webinars, and people who have reversed tinnitus talk about how it has nothing to do with the ears. It actually has to do with mitochondrial dysfunction. It has to do with you being all of a sudden hyper tuned into the nervous system, which makes sense in our case, because there's been these demonstrations where people without tinnitus will be put into soundproof rooms. And I don't know all the details about how they conduct this study, but they will actually be able to hear ringing in their ears at a certain point. So everybody can hear. Tinnitus is actually normal, but most people don't hear it because their brain is filtering it out. It's just the sounds and the noise of the neuronal activity in the body, in the nervous system, in the central nervous system. It's just that when people have some type of trauma, whether it's coming off these meds too fast, whether it's a noise trauma, whether it's some type of, infection that creates like a chemical stress trauma in the body, suddenly your brain becomes hyper tuned into the sound of this neuronal activity. And that's what causes the sensation, or what you can hear as sound. I thought that was really interesting. And anyway, these tinnitus retraining therapies, these people who have claimed to reverse it, and all of these people talk about how you have to take a holistic approach. And again, it's a domino effect. It has to do with your stress response. It has to do with inflammation. It has to do with but again, when you're in an acute state, this all becomes really overwhelming. It can become overwhelming otherwise, but that's why I don't recommend looking into these things until you're further along, because sometimes just the time alone will take you right over the edge, and other times it'll take you maybe to 80%, and then there's just something else that maybe you have to change in your lifestyle that will take you to 100% recovery. You'll see this in the forums, and again, people in acute who are going into the forums will read these things. Well, this person took taurine or this person took L-theanine and they recovered themselves. But what they're missing is this person was 3-4 years protracted, and it was just one final symptom they were looking to get through. That might not be the case all of the time, but a lot of the time that's what happens. And I experimented with all the therapies, all of the supplements, everything when I was in acute, and all it did was, I believe, never give me any windows. It was only once I really realized all these things and trusted the process and trusted my body to get me to a subacute stage where things weren't so intense anymore. And that's exactly what happened. I just let my body just chill, even though I was not chilled ever. Chill in the sense that I wasn't anymore experimenting with all of these programs and all of these supplements and everything, trying to fix it from a fear state. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And my final thing, and I say this all the time, is please get off the groups. If you're someone who, and I talk to people all the time who, are in different phases of this recovery process, but almost everybody I talk to knows so much about the forums and so much about everything that it's like, okay, I realize that they're at the stage where you have all the information you need. Now you're just going down rabbit holes. You need to get off. And I've said in videos before, it can become an addiction and you might have to ask for a ban. That was something that I did, especially Benzo buddies. You ask them to ban you, they will ban you temporarily or for however long you need, just because if you just cannot stop yourself from going on there when you feel bad, you need to get off. Because even in these different long-term therapies, like I was talking about, specifically like the tinnitus retraining ones, that's the one that I've perused the most recently. They talk about even with their own recovery things, getting off forums, stopping reading the horror stories, stopping talking about symptoms all of the time is actually one of the key pillars to recovery. Neuro-linguistic programming, other things within this space where you're doing sort of limbic system retraining, you have to stop engaging in the fear conversations. And this is why I talk about with support, it needs to be positive, because if you're just engaging with people and you're just comparing stories and you're just going down rabbit holes together and scaring, well, this person ate bacon and then they had a severe histamine reaction. This person ate corn and now they go into a severe wave. This person did this and this and this. It just creates more of that fear response. And that's what you want to get out of. So again, a lot of these programs, one of the things is you have to, calm down on the symptom talk. Unless if you're talking to a coach, the coach can sort of like help you to reframe that and put you more into a positive mindset and into a headspace of you can recover from this, then it's okay. But if you're just engaging with other people who are in a similar situation and it's just symptom talk and scaring, reading all of the threads, not having all of the information behind those threads, but seeing that this person is 8 years protracted and oh my God, this person didn't make it. Like you have to stop yourself. You have to do whatever you can to stop yourself. Reach out to someone and be like, I'm in this space. I'm in this headspace. I can't stop perusing the forums. I can't get out of it. Reach out to someone that can sort of pull you back. It's really, really, really important for everybody to do. I cannot say that enough. So anyway, enough rambling from me again. Let me know what you think about this, the fix yet not fix sort of solution, or I guess theory. I have found it in other areas of my life. I will relate it to my diabetes. If I spent all days on the diabetes online forums, and there's a ton of those too, I would just be living in constant fear of losing a foot, losing my eyesight, all of the things that go along with diabetes, premature death, kidney failure, dialysis. I mean, I did that for a while when I was burnt out, and all it did was it fueled this horrible obsessions, depression, despair. It's just never good. And it's not been worth it, because I haven't had any of those complications of diabetes after almost 26 years of the disease. I know it's a very real possibility. I have a cousin who's blind from diabetes, but it's like that balance of, okay, I know what I shouldn't be doing. Like I need to get control of my diabetes, but not living in the fear, and it can be carried over into this whole community. There are people who have very long healing journeys, but you don't know all of the situation behind that. You don't know if they're still taking meds. You don't know if they're drinking alcohol. So you have to take it again with a grain of salt, knowing that there's people who, we're not invalidating them, but not living in that fear and staying in your own experience. You have to do that and know, focus on the people who have come out of it, focus on the success stories, fill your mind with those types of things. That's what's going to bring your nervous system into a bit more of a calm state. And really, living in the horror stories doesn't serve any purpose. So anyway, I'm rambling. Let me know what you think about this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.